welcome back to the Babbling Bee. I'm Taylor, and I am here to wrap up my Jane Austen July. On the day that I am filming this video, Jane Austen July is, of course, not officially over, but it's over for me. You know, when you just kind of know that you're done and you've read everything that you're realistically gonna get to before the readathon is over. That's where I'm at. I'm accepting reality and accepting defeat in the case of one book that was on my TBR. But otherwise, I feel like I did a good job. I feel at peace with my Jane Austen July. July turned out to be a month. There were definitely a couple of weeks in a row where I just was hardly reading anything. So I actually feel quite pleased that I read and spent time on all of these books. It was a good reading month. It was a fairly turbulent month in terms of life stuff. Just like things came up that required a lot of attention and time and energy from me, from my husband. Yeah, so really looking forward to seeing the end of July. And obviously the start of August is really when I start to just give myself increasing amounts of permission to be in the fall vibes mode. So yeah, looking forward to that for sure. So this is kind of a dual purpose video. I'm going to tell you what I read in Jane Austen July, and I'm also going to quickly, I hope, tell you what my personal ranking is of my favorite books of Jane Austen's. I was gonna do a whole separate video on that, but we're just doing what we can do this week, and it's gonna be more effective for me if I can just squeeze this into 2 videos. So yeah, gonna try to make that a fast process. I have my little list of my ranked Austen books, which kind of surprised me actually. By the time I actually got around to making an official list, there are a couple of things on there, like the order that they're in was surprising to me. But let's talk about Jane Austen July reading first. So, Accepting Defeat on Austen Years by Rachel Cohen. Not because I wasn't enjoying it, just once I hit that couple of weeks where life stuff was just happening and I was a lot more low energy, much lower capacity, like this was just not happening. I made it like less than a third of the way through the book, but I will say I did really enjoy reading. There was a particular section that I read about Sense and Sensibility, which was the first book that I read and completed for Jane Austen July, which I'll get to in a second. And I really enjoyed her commentary on that novel and how it is essentially a novel of grief. Like, the Dashwood women are experiencing multiple kinds of loss throughout the book, and they're really grieving in different ways and for different things almost the entire time that the story of Sense and Sensibility is going on. And I was like, that is so true. And I really think that's just one of the things that I love the most about Sense and Sensibility as a book, as the 1995 film. So then I was just thinking about how much it's really about grief, and like women's experience of grief in that particular time and setting and their socioeconomic bracket. Like, how are they expected to carry that and deal with it, and how does that affect their relationships with one another? And I just think that's fascinating. So I was certainly enjoying this. It just got to a point where I no longer had the capacity to read like serious literary criticism. So we give up. We will maybe approach this next year or some other year of Jane Austen July. And now on to things that I did successfully read and finish. The first of which was Sense and Sensibility. And I kind of went back and forth between the wonderful Rosamund Pike audiobook of this and actually reading it on my Kindle. And it had been a really long time since I had physically read the text of this novel, and I think that was really good for me to do. I love the audiobook. I think that audiobooks certainly count as reading, but I do think they are a different way, a different kind of reading, maybe, and I just was able to like really hone in and focus on some things as I was reading the words with my eyeballs. So yeah, it was just, I read this so quickly. And another thing that I've been thinking about with Sense and Sensibility is how much it's kind of a mystery. Like, and this wasn't my original idea. I'm pretty sure I read this somewhere from someone, but there's like suspense to it. There's so much suspense in terms of what is going to happen to these women. Like, how are these relationships going to turn out, and are they going to be okay, like in terms of having their physical needs met and being able to have a home? And then there's just like secrets and intrigue, and the men are very mysterious. And yeah, I just thought that the suspense aspect of it was so great this time around. Even though I know what happens, but I still was like so invested, and just, yeah, it was very propulsive reading. And I love this book. I would happily take an entire class just about Sense and Sensibility and like sisterhood and female camaraderie and relationships and the issue of home and making a home, surviving on the social scene. There's so many things that I love to think about and talk about and read about when it comes to this book. So I had a lovely time, and I felt like I really like gave this book its due diligence. I focused a lot on it for the first part of Jane Austen July. So call that a roaring success. Also succeeded in reading Austenland by Shannon Hale on my Kindle, which I did take a couple of weeks break from it after I started it because life happened. But I don't feel like my reading of it was very damaged by that. I was able to just jump back in. It was extremely funny, which I really enjoyed. I was hoping it would be funny because I find the film so hilarious and clever, and I was very pleased that I thought the book was funny as well. A couple of changes that exist in adapting this into a screenplay, of course, that's inevitable. I actually think I prefer a couple of the choices that get made in the film adaptation as opposed to the book. But I am also very happy that I got the 2026 updated edition of Austenland, not least because of the absolutely wonderful dedication to Colin Firth. The updated dedication to Colin Firth at the beginning was just so good. But also there's extra content. There's like an epilogue that Shannon Hale includes in this expanded edition of Austenland, where she talks about how she came to write the book in the first place, and then her experience of traveling to England to be on the film set as the movie got made, like the process of adapting the screenplay, adapting the book into a screenplay, and then being there as the film was getting made. And I just love Shannon Hale, and I appreciate her honesty about being an awkward, bookish writer person. I think she has a great sense of humor, and yeah, that was really delightful to read as well. So really enjoyed reading Austenland. And then these are just my two fun little extras. They're not full books, so I don't know, some people wouldn't count these, but I'm counting them. So I read, once again, the wonderful screenplay Diaries for the 1995 Sense and Sensibility film by Emma Thompson. This is not a Jane Austen July specific thing for me. I will read this whenever I am deeply exhausted, stressed, or sad. So I'm sure this will maybe make another appearance soon in my life because, you know, but I did spend time on it for the month of July as well, which was great. I read it very, very slowly. I literally went weeks without picking it up, and then this was just a few nights ago. I sat down and actually finished it, and it is so warm and hilarious and full of little details about the process of making this film that I could read about it all day, and sometimes I do. It's like the appendices to the Peter Jackson Lord of the Rings movies. I don't know if you're an appendices person. I'm definitely an appendices person, and I just love getting insights into the process of filmmaking and the interactions between the cast and crew members, and in particular, I just love Emma Thompson. I just love her. So, I mean, I think I would happily read her writing about, like, just extremely mundane, boring life tasks, and I still would be highly entertained and have a sense of kinship with her. So, yeah, this is one of my favorite things ever, and it was very nice, comforting, easy reading for those really low energy days that happened around the middle of the month. As was my dipping in and out of a Jane Austen year by the folks at the Jane Austen house. And again, this, I mean, the Sense and Sensibility's Diaries I did read in full, but, you know, it's not like a full book length thing. This, it was not my intention to finish. I'm just showing you some of the pictures from the inside. If you haven't seen or come across this book before, it's very delightful and lovely. But it wasn't my intention to read this in its entirety. I just flicked through the June, July, and August sections. I tried not to stray into the autumnal months too much because I would like to look at those in the fall. But yeah, this was cool. Some biographical information about her. Actually found some interesting background information about her process of drafting Sense and Sensibility, which she took a long break before finishing it and sending it off for publication. And yeah, I love reading about Chawton, her house, and the fact that when they finally settled there, she had like the space and the quiet to begin writing again. And there's just something very real to me about the fact that Jane Austen took such a long break from being able to work on her books, because of a variety of things, probably, but I feel like a lot of it was just the stress of her living circumstances and where she lived, and it was loud and hectic and she hated it. And she just didn't have the space or the mental emotional capacity to write. And yeah, that's a real thing that writers experience. And I think her story is very hopeful in so many ways because she took a long break, but then she was eventually able to come back to it, and look what happened, and look what we have now as a result of that. So yeah, that was fun. Didn't finish it, but didn't intend to. Okay, now that we're done with what I read for Jane Austen July, I'm just gonna quickly give you my personal ranking of my favorite Jane Austen books. And I want to say before doing this, this whole, like, my whole desire to do this sprang out of a conversation that I had with my husband while we were on a road trip. And this was back when I was planning and preparing for Jane Austen July, and I was watching a lot of Katie videos at Books and Things. And I think I had just watched her video in which she was ranking her favorite Austen books. I'll see if I can find it and put it in the description box. But yeah, that whole time of planning and preparing for Jane Austen July made me want to see if I could rank Jane Austen's books in the order of which ones are my favorite. And as I'm doing this, you know, it's been years now since I have been in the world of academia. And I think having some distance from that really changed this list for me. And it was a close call because when I first started talking about what my favorites would be, my husband kind of called me out and was like, hey, you need to move Pride and Prejudice up and you need to move Sense and Sensibility up because, like, you love them and you talk about them all the time and you reread them all the time and, like, they're your favorites, man. And I was like, you're right, they are. I think there's a temptation that we can have to, you know, want to sound smart, I guess, or to be more literary, to show that we're, like, serious readers of serious classics. And so I just want to say that for me personally, this ranking of my favorite Austen books is my favorite Jane Austen books. Like, it is purely subjective to me having a grand old time and just taking the most delight out of these novels. So I'm not attempting to make, like, an academically sound ranking of which books are objectively her best. I'm not interested in trying to make that kind of list. It was just fun to exchange thoughts about it with my husband and get his ranking of his favorite books. We have in common the book that's in our number one slots. That one is the same, but then our list is different as it goes on from there. So I will just tell you mine. Oh, also speaking of my husband, I know I said in my TBR we might be reading Persuasion together in July. That most definitely did not happen. I did not get to Persuasion, and he was stuck reading The Count of Monte Cristo, and there was just no way that was going to be on the cards. So maybe another year we will buddy read an Austen together, and that will be fun. But in the meantime, we did have this lovely discussion. So thus follows my ranking on my lovely pink notepad. So in my top spot, I have Persuasion. I just love it. I love its melancholy. I love the poetry and the romance of it. I love Anne Elliot and her quiet and her loneliness and how she carries it. Again, grief. I just love Persuasion. So yeah, I find it to be an extremely beautiful and hopeful book, although it has a lot of sadness in it. I think it is fundamentally a story of second chances and hope. So yeah, love Persuasion a lot. Then we have Pride and Prejudice. And then following that, we have Sense and Sensibility. I could easily put, on any given day, I could put either one of those in my number one spot as well. Like, those three, Persuasion, Pride and Prejudice, and Sense and Sensibility, I just feel like are kind of interchangeably really my favorite Jane Austen book at any given time. But for the sake of making a numbered list, yeah, I take so much sheer joy and pleasure from reading and rereading Pride and Prejudice and Sense and Sensibility. And I've talked about them before, so we won't linger on that for now. But anyways, then we have Mansfield Park, which was painful to me. Like, it hurts that it's at number 4, but I don't reach for it as often as I reach for Pride and Prejudice or Sense and Sensibility or Persuasion. So it is what it is. There's also some very, like, unlikable stress-inducing characters in Mansfield Park, which is also true of Emma. Emma is in my number 5 spot, and I know that it's many people's favorite Jane Austen, and it's very funny. I think it's a great story. I love Mr. Knightley. I love Mr. Knightley much more than I used to love Mr. Darcy. So like, I get it. Emma is just a challenging one for me. Mostly because of the people in Emma that I hate, like that drive me nuts. It's a long book and there's a lot of characters and you're just kind of having to spend time with people who you don't love, but you're also watching all of these like deeply awkward circumstances unfold because of Emma's meddling that could be avoided and they're not. And yeah, there's more stress to the process of reading Emma for me personally than I find in some of her other books. And then we have Northanger Abbey at the bottom of the list, which, to be fair, I definitely am due for a reread of Northanger Abbey, and I'm guessing that I will find it to be an enjoyable experience. I have read it once, but it was a long time ago, and I feel like I need a refresher. I mean, it's meant to be a spoof in a lot of ways, so I think I would find it funny and enjoyable in that sense if I read it again. I like Tilney. I think Tilney's a good dude, just a solid good dude. So yeah, I don't hate Northanger Abbey by any means. It's just, I never reach for it. I hardly ever reread it. So rereadability for me personally is what really informed the top 3 in my list, which are Persuasion, Pride and Prejudice, and Sense and Sensibility. My 3 Jane Austen loves in life. Okay, that's it for me. Thank you for listening and watching. I hope you had a good Jane Austen July. If you participated, if you didn't do Jane Austen July, did you have any reading highlights from the month in general? If you did do Jane Austen July, tell me your highlights of the month as well. And I will see you for another video soon in which I am planning to just talk about books that I have finished in the last couple of months, because I haven't done an update on that for a while. But I'm going to go do some chores. So I wish you a good wrap up of your Jane Austen July, or just your July reading in general, and I will see you for another video soon. Bye.